If you've been trying to grow your brand, running ads, tweaking listings, posting on social, and still watching revenue bounce under a couple $1,000,000 year after year, wondering why nothing is compounding, this video is for you. I'm going to tell you exactly why your brand is stuck in the next 30 minutes. It's not your product, it's not your reviews, it's definitely not the algorithm or the economy. Stay until the end. I'm going to show you exactly what a brand that breaks past 10 million is doing differently. And if you're looking for hacks, you can just click away now. I started selling on Amazon when I was 15 years old. My professor helped me list my first items. I listed them, they sold, that was it. Within 2 years, I crossed $1 million in revenue. 2 years after that, I crossed 10 million. And that is how Voadera was built. Today, we sit at 5 warehouses across the US, a team of 125 people, over $60 million in sales last year on just one account. So this is me back when I was 15, 16 years old. And this is just last year on just one of our primary accounts. Selling over $60 million in revenue. I have nothing to sell in this video. Everything I'm about to share is free, and it is exactly what I would do if I was starting over today. This video is about the 4 skills that determine whether your brand compounds past 10 million or stays flat. At the end, I'll also share you how to get access to these slides. So the first skill is offer construction. This is one of the biggest needle movers or leverage items you can do to really catapult your listing to the next level. There's certain components within it, but before I jump into something specifically, I wanted to walk through a simple example, right? Let's say you're walking to Target, you have bottle A and bottle B. They're both the same exact raw materials, right? You're definitely still going to go towards bottle B. And the reason I mention this is actually I want to differentiate between value and perceived value. The value between both these bottles is exactly the same, right? But the perceived value, you feel like you're getting a better deal with bottle B because of the offer behind it, not because of the product. The product is the same. So this is just an important, and this is one of the biggest flips that we offer brands is you don't have to change your ingredients to your product. You have to change the marketing behind them or the copy behind them so you can change the perception towards something specifically. So I'm going to say specifically what the offer looks like, the components of that after this. And before getting into that, I want to mention also another important point about the difference in today's market with Amazon or Shopify or Walmart, all these marketplaces online compared to 7 years ago. Today, the demand and supply have roughly converged on a lot of these platforms where before it was a very supply constrained industry. If you just threw a listing on Amazon, people would fly towards you. You didn't have to do much. You could just literally throw up a pen and not have any differentiation because there were so few pens and there were so many people wanting pens, and whatever the product is, it was the same across everything. You could win and dominate that category market. You could throw up a listing and get there. Today, it's much different. Whether it's Chinese markets, Chinese sellers flooding the market, whether it's additional US competition, big brands taking Amazon seriously, the competition has changed significantly. So it's a very different market, and you have to prime yourself and really hit on a lot of these concepts within this video to make sure your product is successful. So what are the components of an offer on Amazon specifically? The first one, and this is the most important one, is clear positioning. Again, 2 concepts here. The first one is clear. The second one is positioning. You need both. So clear is simple, easy to know, easy to read. You read it, it's simple. It tells you what the product is. And a quick litmus test for this that I like a lot is I grab my product. I go to like a 10-year-old kid that's watching TikTok all day long, right? There's a use for them, right? So I grab it and on my phone, because 80% of shoppers are on their phone. And what I do is I cover the title and I have them look at the main image or even second image or third image. And I take it away after 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. And I ask them to describe the product. The more specifically they can describe it, the better that is. Then I do the same for the title. So I cover the picture and I have them look at the title and I want them to describe it. The more specific, again, the better. So an example, if this was the main image and I put my hand on the title and all they said was, or even let's use this example right here. Actually, this is maybe a little bit easier. All they said was pen. That's fine, right? But if they tell me this was a black pen, right? Okay, that's a little bit better, right? That's more specific. I was able to convey that from the main image. And then the same for the title. They tell me what the offer does. So that's kind of the primary concept behind this. And you see a lot of products do this well, where they're displaying simply what the product is, what it does, and who it's for. through just the main image or just the title, ideally with the more important parts toward the beginning. So where it's in the beginning of the title, we'll get to this later. I don't want to dive too deep into this right now. So, and then the other part of this, we didn't get to the second part, is positioning. You want to live in a certain category. The more niche, the better. Obviously not too niche where no one is buying, right? You don't want to make a black pen for 22-year-old females that are studying archaeology, right? There's not going to be a lot of search volume behind that. But you want to niche down enough where there's enough search volume, but you can also win against a specific competitor. So in this example right here, if I'm launching a mug similar to this one, I'm not going to go compete with Hydroflush, right? They're going to have tens of thousands of reviews. It's going to be very tough to win over them. But if I position my mug specifically towards, let's say, males on the desk, and I make that, okay, even though it could be the same product, right? But I just position it, okay, this is non-slip resistant and won't fall on you while you're working, right? And I'm talking to that, like when you say this is for people who want a mug, but are frustrated by it spilling over in work. As an example, even though it could be the same, again, same product, same raw material, but the perception or the positioning is very different, and I'm niched down. Then when that specific buyer comes in, even if they see Hydroflush more reviews, this is more targeted towards them. It speaks towards their pain points. I'm going to win that sale. I'm going to get that conversion. So that's going back to clear positioning. There's a lot of examples within this. I have another example with a partner of ours. They have dog treats. They were looking specifically for organic, so we put that within the title. And then the sales literally almost went up by 20 or 30% because this was a new launch, and we specifically beat the incumbent or the old person in that category basically with that specific positioning, because we got that organic customer, that premium customer in there within that material. Or that's the first thing. The second one is proof. Yeah, reviews, you're gonna have less when you're smaller, but that doesn't mean you stop. You can put before and after of customers using it. You can put, this is where I really love for brands to add a video when they're doing sub a couple $1 million a year. Obviously, you should always have it, but especially then you go to a company like Join Brands, you pay $50, and basically you get UGC, user-generated content of someone using your product, displaying how it's used. Again, you want a 30-second video, simple. How is it used? Making sure if it's supplement, someone actually eats it, it's not poisonous, or okay, this guy ate it. It gives them a little bit more confidence within it. And demonstrate and outline the value to show what it looks like before and after, maybe quotes within the pictures, like this is, we've done that in the past. It doesn't work as well, ideally from the reviews at the bottom, but just displaying that proof however, wherever you can. The third one is to reduce the risk on the customer. So you can't say 30-day return. That's industry standard. You want to stand out. Can you offer a warranty with your product, right? If, for example, let's say your product is supposed to be very durable jacket. Canada Goose, right? They offer a lifetime warranty. That's a very good risk reversal in their category. What's something for you? If your product, for example, let's say a mouse, it's supposed to be 2 times faster to move, or that's a bad example because that's not as useful. Oh, this is a good example, right? These right here. They're supposed to reduce sound compared to the normal one by 25%. If not, return the money back. Or if not, we'll come check it out for you. But how can you reduce the risk on that specific product? One of our products, for example, is electrolytes. We notice a lot of people don't like the current taste of them. So we said, we'll taste better than your current electrolytes or full refund. We didn't say you have to return it within 30 days. Even if someone came 6 months later, we'll still give it to them, because that's how confident we are in our positioning. But also, more importantly, that's how much we're willing to reduce the risk to get that additional lift in sales. And then pricing architecture. This is where you can be creative. You buy 2, get 1 free. There's a lot of different stuff you can do. For example, one of the things we do is if you buy 3, you get 15% off. Buy 4, get 20% off. Another part of that is basically adding coupons, price discounts, best deals, all that kind of stuff. Makes, again, the offer look more lucrative. You see the slash through pricing on the main page. So if you have a high suggested retail price, right, that's where I encourage to kind of maintain, let's say $50, but then continuously run it to $40. We've had this game. It's crazy. The suggested retail price is at $50, but we're switching it every deal. It's either on a lightning deal, a best deal, a price discount, a coupon. We're bringing it down to $40, $40, $40, $40, $40. And that alone, when we're increasing it, when it's at $50, and this is outside of season. Obviously, within season, it's selling thousands. But outside of season, it's selling around 20 a day when it's not, it's $50. But when you bring it down to 40, yes, we're obviously losing $10 on each sale, but we're selling, instead of the initial 20 that I mentioned, we're selling around 100. So that's obviously the absolute profit is much better. And we actually just take it out of the advertising budget. I'd rather give that discount because, again, it makes the offer look more lucrative, and it's the same money. We either would have spent it on ads. So the 50, we actually once tested at $50, and to spend that $10 difference on ads, our sales went up to 40. So might as well spend it on the price and get it up to 100 units per day. So some things that you can do this week, and I'll try to kind of add these as you go through it to make it very practical, is look at your main listings right now. Again, always to get the most leverage, start with your highest movers. Don't start with a SKU that's moving 2 units a day when you have one that's moving 100 units a day. The leverage is much higher for that higher moving SKU. Write down your positioning in one sentence. See if you can do that test that I talked about to simply explain what things look like. Count how many purchase options you give the customer. And this is actually a very important point, is you want to satiate the customer's desire for shopping. And this is a very important concept. Let's say, I'm not going to mention commodities, right? If you're going to buy milk or eggs, yes, you're walking in the supermarket, you're going where you want, and you're coming out with it. That's actually why they put it in the back as an interesting fact. That's why they put it in the back of the store, so they can tempt you with snacks and other stuff. Whether you go to Cub Foods or Target or Walmart, you don't see the milk and eggs at the beginning. You see them at the end. But that's just kind of interesting effect. But the point is, if you're going to shop for, let's say, pants or jeans or a shirt, you're not going to look at the first one and buy it. You're going to want to look at 3, 4, satiate the desire for shopping, feel like you kind of looked at what's in the landscape before you go. So imagine you can satiate the desire for a customer within your listing by adding numerous variations, numerous colors, numerous case packs, right? So then they don't feel like they have to go to another listing to fulfill that. And that's a very important concept, going back to kind of pricing architecture and adding numerous sizes with different prices to kind of, for the more spendy customers, less spendy customers, the people in the middle, being able to encompass all of those segments, basically. Seeing if your offer is the best deal in the market. This is kind of a good question. Once when we were talking to a brand, like, why is no one, we're looking at it and like, why is no one buying this? Very basic brand. They didn't have a lot of the stuff missing. There was nothing creative. I was like, okay, listen to me. They were their own ICP, so they were their own customer avatar. I was like, listen, all right, let's be honest. I pulled up the Amazon listing. Which one are you buying? Then he pointed to another listing. All right, let's say that one was out of stock. Which one are you buying? Then he pointed another one. Which one are you buying if that was the third one? And then till he got to the 7th option is when he went to his. I was like, all right, let's go reverse engineer. Why did you pick that one? Because it has this price. All right, let's add that to yours. Because it has this. Let's add that to yours. So, right, reverse engineering. And being honest, are you going to pick yours if yours is on the market? And a lot of times, sadly, it's no. So why do you expect other people to kind of go to it? And then another part is asking your customer avatar if they would buy it or not. So I remember one story, and actually let me leave this for the next section. Actually, I think this is better because it goes into conversion. So I'll mention this later. But the point is that once you fix your offer, you'll see a huge lift in conversion rate, and you'll see a huge lift in even click-through rate and people looking at your listing because they're scrolling through, they see something with a main image, clear positioning, strike through price. Oh, what is this? They gravitate towards it. They kind of put their eyes on it. So the second skill is optimizing conversion, and definitely optimizing before you send traffic. The last thing you want to do is you have a bucket and you're filling it up with hot water and it has a gaping hole, and it's just going to have water continuously seep through that, and you're never ever going to fill the bucket. So take a step back, you fill up that hole, right? And then you go back to it. So this is where you're looking at the PDP, you're perfecting it, you're making sure everything looks good, and you're optimizing it appropriately. So that's one of the most expensive mistakes you see a lot of people do. They want activity, they want to feel busy, so they turn on ads. Oh, there's sales. The sales aren't profitable. What are you doing? And even the sales you're getting, they don't have any long-term impact because your product will not organically rank, because your conversion rate compared to the market is less. And the way you can know that is that's where I have SQP, is you can go to the search query performance within brand analytics, and you can look at your conversion rate compared to the market for specific keywords. And you can see, what does that look like for me? What can I do about that? Making your your product layout simple, your store layout simples, and ensuring that you're never going to perfect conversion rate, but you at least want to be beating the market to really send traffic to, especially if you're turning on a single keyword campaign, SKCs. You really want to look at that keyword and see if you're beating the market in conversion rate. And that's where you go to search query performance. You can see the market purchases, your purchases, market views, your views, and then see what the conversion rate for the market. You divide those two with each other, and then you divide your two by each other, and you see which percentage is higher. Ideally, you want to be 2% higher than the market. So if the market conversion rate was 10, you want to be 12. If the market conversion rate was 8, you want to be 10%. So then that gives you more confidence that you can organically rank top 3, top 5 eventually. And one important concept to understand, and I love this concept. Someone told it to me a few years ago, but basically the goal of marketing isn't to get sales. It's to get a customer. You want to get that customer, keep them with you over the long run. Amazon obviously is never going to give you customers, right? So, but their version of that is organic ranking. And that's where you really want to run sales to get organic ranking. Our threshold for our benchmarks is we don't want any product getting more than 30 or 40% of its sales from paid sales. We want the rest to be organic, whether it's subscribers or organic ranking or so on and so forth. So what are the 4 levers of conversion in order, right? The first one is price point. I wish I could sit here and make you feel good and say that you could price high, doesn't matter. You'll get sales either way. Especially if you're a smaller brand, you don't have that premium positioning, you don't have that premium brand, top of funnel awareness. You have to win on price. You have to have everything we talked about before and a very competitive price, whether you like it or not. It's the truth of it's the truth situation. I'm not here to make you feel good. Hopefully, I'm here to help you as much as I can. Whether that's also, as we mentioned, adding coupons, PDs. You have to, until you get more reviews that you can compete on reviews, you have to compete on where a customer looks at 2 identical listings. One has 10,000 reviews, another one has 2,000. They're the same price. They're obviously going to the other one. But if you have 2,000 and let's say that one is $40, you're $30, that's enough motivation to get them to over the edge. You can get about it from other ways. Ideally, you're not identical listing. Again, we go to the offer architecture. You have a clear image, you have a clear positioning, but everything else identical. That's going to be the simplest and easiest way to win. But obviously, we want to try to avoid simple solutions because it's not going to be profitable long term. So that's why we want to supplement it with other stuff from other components. But I just want to be honest and say that this is where this stems. The second one is creative optimization. I love this one a lot because you can really display premium positioning Amazon creative. You mentioned videos earlier, but whether it's primary, secondary images, and one thing to actually understand about secondary images is that each image gets almost half of the views of the image before. So if the first image got 1,000, let's say the second image, right? It got 1,000 lux or views. The third image is going to get 500. The fourth one is going to get 250. So that's why it's very important the call outs or the benefits to put them on the second and third image before you get to the later images. You can kind of put the less important ones there and maybe some lifestyle stuff or whatever. But that until you get to the video. Actually, once you get to the video, that has a lot of more views, almost as much as the second and third one. So that's why the video is actually important again. So, and then also another thing is primary A+ content, premium A+ content. It used to be A+, now it's premium A+. They upgraded a little bit. But actually, one of the advantages of premium A+, beyond just the creative optimization and the look and the feel of everything, is actually that it shoves your competitors down. So let's say a customer is scrolling, they have to scroll further to see similar items to that section, and they won't see it from the beginning. So if it was only for that benefit, it'd be worth it on its own. So to just shove competitors down, make it harder to see them, and to make the customer sit on your listing more. So that's just kind of a side point as well. Copy, this is very important. You want to make your copy intent focused, not feature-based, benefit-based. I'll get into that a little bit. And you want to make sure, and this is where I'm going to go back to the Playmat example, working with a baby brand. And you want to make sure that it speaks to the objections of your customer. And copy, yes, there's the bullet points, but there's also the title. There's also the text on the images. Rufus reads all of that when a customer asks a question. So it's very important. But let's go through one point at a time. The importance of answering objections in copy. So this is actually a very important concept. I had a baby playmat. I went to my uncle's wife, or at my uncle's house, basically, and she was sitting there. So it was like, she had 2 children, and I was like, would you buy this for your baby? I didn't tell her it was my product. I don't want any bias within that. So obviously I didn't show it to my uncle because he's not the customer avatar. She's the purchaser. So I showed it to her, and she looked at it for 5-6 seconds, and she's like, no, I wouldn't. I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, it didn't have, how do I know this is trustworthy? It didn't have any testing. I was like, oh my God, we do have testing, but it was stuffed all the way in the 5th bullet point. Almost no one reads the bullet points. That's one of the issues there. I mean, you do have some people, Rufus reads them for intent, and I'll get into that later. But we moved it from the 5th bullet point to the second image. We added our testing certification, it was CPC tested, all that kind of stuff. And that alone increased conversion for that item 20-30%. And that had flywheel ramifications, which I'll get into in the slide after this, about how conversion doesn't just impact conversion rate itself. So not only will, for example, you got 1,000 views onto your listing before, let's say your conversion rate is 10%, 100 bought. Now it's 120 buying, the 20%, 20 additional sales. There's also other effects outside of that, which I'll mention in a little bit. But again, that's where you have to prioritize copy in the right place. You also have to make it clear, obvious, going back to those concepts. And you also, very importantly, make it benefit-based, not feature-based. One example here, you can see it's 500 milligrams vitamin C. Rather, the strong is 1 capsule, the full daily vitamin C. That's the benefit, is they're getting their full dose of vitamin C from this product. 500 milligrams, that's a very tactical feature. What is the benefit for the customer? So again, always just throw your copy into ChatGPT. Is this benefit-based or feature-based? Or how can I make this more, and if it's not, then okay, how do I make it more feature-based? So, and then also making sure it's intent-based, because Rufus analyzes the intent. So a customer asks Rufus, is this my full daily vitamin C? It might answer it's 500 milligrams, confuse the customer. If it reads this full daily, okay, yes, it is full daily, right? So understanding the intent behind stuff and optimizing for Rufus. And then reviews and social proof, obviously less when you start, you don't have as much, but there's actually a big advantage of being smaller in a few areas. This is one of them. But this is a big one of them, is in the reviews and social proof. And the reason that I mentioned that is because, let's say, for example, you had 100 reviews and your star rating was 4.1, but you knew that the category was at 4.2, so you want to be at 4.4 stars. That was your goal. If you have 100 reviews, it's much easier to steer the ship to get to that desired output. But if you're at 10,000 reviews and you're at 4.1, there's so much negative reviews that you have to overcome to get to that desired outcome. So that's where you have an advantage when you're in the beginning to turn things around. One example, you had a matcha product, right? There was an issue with the formulation taste. We were at, I think it was 3.8. The category is at 4.1. Our goal is to be at around 4.2. So 3.8, we got the first 20, 30, 40 reviews, and we were able to steer it around and change the formula because they noted a specific, I think it was, they noted it was a little bit too salty. So we reduced the salt intake, we halved it for the new products. And then lo and behold, the new products are getting 4.5 star reviews. It was adjusted to 4.1, and it's still going up right now. But because we were able to steer the ship, if we had 10,000 reviews, it would have taken years probably to course correct. Now it just took a few weeks. So that's the difference. And even going back to reviews and price point, it also increased the perceived value and the expectations, because when you're smaller, you price it less. Let's say you're pricing it lower because the category is at $40, you're at $30. The customer gets it. When they got it for $30 and it meets their expectation, they actually leave a better review, because my expectations for something cheaper is less than something higher. So you can exceed their expectations much more likely with a lower price point. So you get a higher review in return on the back end. So that's one of the also advantages of being a first mover and being on the market, is that you have an increased perception. So it's easier to get reviews on that. And even Vine reviews, that's kind of one of the hacks, is you price it lower at $20 instead of $40, let's say, so that the Vine reviewers can feel like they got a better deal because they're getting it free anyways. They feel like they got a better deal and they leave a higher review in return. So that's kind of a small, I said no hack, so that's a little bit of in there. So this is a very important one. By the way, if you're liking this video, please leave a like. We put a lot of effort into writing these and accumulating various team members to kind of add valuable information. So please leave a like. It encourages me to keep continuing. But conversion is the flywheel. It's the future with AI. A lot of people are saying, even the mouse right here, we're no longer going to use it with AI. We're going to have the same how ChatGPT is just the search navigation and it produces results. And the results it's going to produce, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's all these platforms, Claude, whatever, they're going to give you the offer based on the one with the highest, they're going to populate offers based on conversion rate. That's what they're already doing. That's what Rufus is already doing. So that's why you're really, really focused on conversion rate and making that as good as possible, because that's what the recommendations are based on. The search based is reducing on all platforms. Even YouTube is a search feature. Right now, it's all browse or featured, or it's spitting out what it thinks you want the best, and we're moving more towards that with AI. Another important point is you can't rank organically with a poor conversion rate. That's why no matter how much ads you run, if you have a poor conversion rate, again, poor is relative. It's to the category, but if it's less than the category, there's no way you're going to rank in the top 3, top 5 organically. You're going to continue getting paid sales, and now with CPC, cost per click, rising, it's almost unprofitable in all categories to continuously rely on that unless you have a certain positioning. But the point is, focusing on organic ranking, what it can do, and the flywheel effect. So again, mentioning the earlier example, is beyond just getting the 20 additional sales from 100 to 120, you're also going to get more views because Amazon is going to rank you organically higher. So not only are you converting more, you're converting, let's say 12% instead of 10%. Instead of 1,000 views, you're going to be, let's say you're ranked at the bottom middle of the page. Now you're going to be ranked at the top of the page. You're going to get 5,000 views because Amazon's pushing you further, and also you're exponentially getting more views at the top. So if the 5,000 views, you're also converting more of those views because they're higher intent based, right? So instead of the 12%, because the higher you're on the page, now you're converting 13 or 14, let's just say 13%. So and I'm being very conservative, by the way, but let's just say 13%, 10% is 500, 3% is 150. So 650 compared to your additional 100. So again, a 20% lift in conversion didn't only bring you from 100 to 120, it brought you from 100 to 650. So that the conversion has, again, it has a flywheel effect that's really very, very strong. And also one thing to keep in mind, the factors influencing conversion mature over time. As you get larger, we want to start seeing, especially over $1 million in sales, we want to start seeing badges in there, bestseller badge, Amazon choice badge, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And then reviews and social, you can start becoming that as a moat. We have some products with 60, 50,000 reviews. We price them very high because that's our moat, right? All the competitors are at 5,000. We have the social proof, easy choice, simple, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of ride on the coattails of that success. And then the third skill is unit economics clarity. It's very sad to see, especially on Amazon or a lot of these platforms, Walmart, and is Amazon did increase its fees, right? But what it did more than that is it added a lot of random fees. A lot of, whether it's inventory age surcharge fee, low inventory level fee, a Q4 storage fee, processing fee, return fee. There's like 60 million fees that it's added. You really have to be very aware of this. I made a video on hidden fees. I recommend you go watch it. But without this number, every decision is guesswork. You don't know really what you can afford to do, what you can invest in, how you can invest in it. All that kind of stuff, you don't know how much budget you have for ads. So understanding what your unit economics look like, and especially when you're small, it's much easier to course correct when you're large. A lot of people, they don't understand the unit economics right, and they think they have a cash flow issue when it's really a profit issue. And it's very important to differentiate that, because if you catch that early, your profit is not that great when you're smaller. You can easily cut the product. You can easily change things. There's less products to move with. But when you're larger, it's much harder to navigate. Although it becomes easier from some extent because you can negotiate better pricing because you have volume. But when you're smaller, it's easier to understand your situation, and you can more importantly invest in. Because if, let's say, you're a larger product, you committed $50,000 to DSP, and you're locked into that, but then you find out you can't afford it. You already spent all that budget. You already spent all that kind of stuff. So it's tough to retract from it. But when you're smaller, if you spent a couple grand on an ad, you can kind of get around from that, right? So even one example, we had a product. It was at the edge of the large standard size. What we did is we moved it to regular. So it was actually large, oversized. We moved it to standard size. And that saved us around 60 cents a unit. And with that 60 cents, it was selling around 5,000 units a month, I believe, if I remember right. So 60 cents, that's 600 on each. So basically, let's just say it was $600 times 5. So that's $3,000 a month saved in fees. So over the year, that was what, 3,000 times 12, that's 36 grand. But what we did, and again, this is talking about stuff that has more than one effect. We added that money to advertising, and the sales for that item went up double. So not only we're making more per unit, we're also selling more units. So understanding the implications of knowing your unit economics, looking at things very clearly. Again, you can see here, you have to spend a spreadsheet. This doesn't cover everything, but the point is, make sure you line it out, but you can also understand where you're leaking to see if there's something above usual, under usual, what you can fix, understanding what that looks like, and making sure you count everything in, all the way from the factory to the customer sale and returns, even reverse logistics, does that exist. Amazon FBA calculator, good resources. The link here once you get the slides. I'll give you how to get access to those. But the point is understanding what that looks like. Do this for your top 3 SKUs. Your top SKU right now, make sure you have it's called contribution margin or profit per item. Understanding that is extremely crucial. And then one channel mastery. So this is where you want to master one advertising channel for your product. It's very important that you understand that every advertising channel eventually becomes inefficient, but it's usually much after the brands think it's inefficient. We see a lot of brands kind of rushing to think, okay, I tapped it out. It's usually you didn't tap it out. You probably need to go to different keywords. You need to change your creative, but it's unlikely you tapped it out. And that's where you really want to master one channel. You want to tap it out before you have to. That's why I get frustrated about a lot of $1 million brands are looking at DSP. DSP is very top of funnel. You still have the bottom of the well. It's full. You don't need to harvest and plant for the future. You can still easy pickings from the bottom of things. So that's where you want to make sure that you're maximizing what you have. You pick one channel, you go all in on it. I have the recommendations right after this, the 2 channels that I recommend for brands doing usually $5 million and below, what to master. But the point is you want to, again, reach that threshold and then go look at what the next one looks like. So the 2 paths that I see a lot of brands been successful with in the stage that I'm mentioning for this video is either Amazon sponsored product or micro-influencer paid channel. Based on your conversion rate, I'd recommend one or the other. If your conversion rate is a little bit less, I'd recommend going with the micro-influencer path because you're getting branded search. It helps with your organic ranking. It helps with your conversion rate. So that's where you're getting it from outside. But also if you have Amazon PPC is going to be very expensive. Again, if you have high conversion rate, Amazon PPC is cheaper, the CPC is less, and you're also likely to rank organically in the top 3. So based on conversion rate, choose one or the other, but the point is to choose one or the other. And then once you get that right, you kind of go to the next one until at least you get the grasp of it and things are going well and it starts becoming inefficient. You kind of look at the next one or the next option. Again, obviously, if you're doing micro influencer, you still want to do a little bit of the paid to like defensive and that kind of stuff. But generally, you're focused on one of them. That's the kind of the main thing. The other one is just on maintenance, basically. So that was the 4 skills that determine your success. I'll just go over them quickly. Yeah, the first one is offer construction. The second one is conversion, especially before you start sending a lot of traffic. The third one is understanding your unit economics really well. Again, all the big brands, they mastered these 4. And then one channel master. And actually not just advertising channel. I'd recommend actually selling channel. So if you're D2C, getting that to $1 million, having someone focus on it full time, opening another channel. You can have other channels. There's a difference between focus and maintenance. You can list products there and whatever sales happen. But then I'm talking about actively pursuing growing that channel. Whether it's a selling channel, advertising channel, acquisition channel, right? You have the focus on one at a time. So how 10 million brands think, and I'm going to get later how they execute, but this is their mindset for a lot of brands. They're not doing more things than you. They're doing fewer things, but better, right? Whether that's acquisition channels, they master the channels that they're in, whether it's Meta, TikTok, all that kind of option. Obviously, Amazon, Google, they understand it very well, and then they don't go on to something else until they basically fine-tune it. And then the same actually goes for SKU launches. I see a lot of brands kind of get high on their own supply. They sell a couple $1 million and they launch 10 to 12 products within a year. Like, what are you doing? You only had one flagship product. You don't need to do that. Launch a product strategically. Make sure you put your effort behind that launch. Focus on it. You have a launch strategy, all that kind of stuff. Much better than spraying and praying. Again, maybe 2017 that was working to just throw listings and you wanted to cover as much real estate as possible. Now you want to look at going deep. Gruns, right? It sold for $1.2 billion a few weeks ago to Unilever. It only had a few flagship SKUs and it had the one famous green one basically. And that's the concept behind all this. Now, when you get bigger, you can attack other markets, you can increase your positioning. But even when you do that, you do it very strategic to launch. You don't spray and pray. Offer sharp enough, you feel like you're targeting your audience really well. Optimizing per contribution margin per SKU. You're not just looking at top line revenue, like going Seller Central review. Okay, what's my sales? What's my sales? You're actually looking at the data in a more in-depth way and analyzing what that contribution margin looks like, what the implications are, what can I tweak in the various cost lines to get it better. And then they treat every channel. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but I wanted to make sure I reiterated it here again in this slide. And they treat every channel as a resource allocation, not an opportunity list. This is a big one because you don't want to basically look at a channel and just pursue all opportunities. There's going to be a lot of opportunities, especially when you get bigger. There's this influencer who wants to partner. There's this guy who wants to talk to you. You want to focus. Everything is opportunity cost. You understand opportunity costs really well. You understand focus really well. And you go based on your resources, you allocate accordingly. And that's the same concept of pursuing numerous advertising channels. If you have the resources, you go for it. If not, you don't. And then iterating, this is a big one. You don't treat whether it's Amazon or Shopify or as a passive income destination. You're continuously iterating and tweaking on the smallest things. Whether it's the product itself, reading the 3-star, 2-star, 1-star reviews, even I'll mention the other one, the good ones later, and iterating your product. That's what actually Molson was doing here. I love this video here. You'll watch that link, but he talks about how he iterated his product to small minor tweaks in just the simple one was his lid. It used to spin for it took 30 seconds to spin. Instead, he added less barriers, so now it takes 10 seconds to spin or something along those lines. So because that's what the reviews he got. And then the 4 and 5 stars, doubling down on them, but more importantly, adding them in the copy. If there's something a lot of customers like, you want to make sure that's in the second image, third image, so the other customers can see that you have it, right? And that's if they like that, your product is easy to use because it takes 10 seconds to install. Make sure that's in the second image. Make sure that's in the video. It's showing how it's quick to install, right? So that's kind of what that looks like. How these brands execute. They know, again, each contribution margin on the dollar. This is a very important point. Ad budget flows to wherever the next dollar performs best. This is going back to one channel mastery. If I'm spending $1 million in Meta and let's say my ROAS is 4, right? And the next $1 million is still 4. So I'm spending 2 million now, it's 4. Then I continue spending there. It's as efficient as it was before. But if I start seeing that efficiency decline, and that efficiency isn't because of creative fatigue or all that kind of stuff, or there's other keywords, but it's actually because the market is tapped, then I start looking to other channels. That's why, for example, when we're spending on some brands that are larger, we're spending on PPC $1 million, the next dollar, it's not going into maybe PPC. You can go into it's not going to sponsored product, right? It's going into sponsored product video, sponsored brand, sponsored display, DSP, right? We continue measuring where we're going the next dollar, wherever is going to be the most efficient return. And if the most efficient return is the next one or the current one, that's ideally where we're going to place it, right? We don't want to just go to other channels just because we have to. If the math is there, we follow the math. So that's kind of the point. And then they use time to their advantage. There's a nice book. It's called The Slight Edge. And the concept is very simple. Let's say right now I'm 220 pounds, right? If I'm trying to, let's just say I'm not trying it. Let's just say a simple example, keep it simple. I'm 220 pounds, right? Let's say I gain 0.1 pounds a day and I lose 0.1 pounds a day, right? Within a week, nothing is going to be evident. Maybe the difference is this. But over time, the difference is going to be more significant. And the difference between both of them is going to be tougher to consolidate, right? Because the time is to your advantage. So the same concept goes for reviews. If your reviews are going the right way, then use that to your advantage. Subscribers is the snowball effect rolling. And you can see that you're accumulating subscribers, reviews, organic ranking, all over time, building in the right direction because you're testing and iterating. You're testing your main image. You're A/B testing, manager experiments, and the Seller Central tab. You're looking at what that looks like. That's what's going to propel your listing, and it's going to get you over time. Because again, even testing, you're testing against the control. So if you're testing the main image, let's say even once per quarter, let's say 2 years pass, that's 8 times where you tested against the control. And let's say you're testing your secondary images also once a quarter, right? So you're building on a lot of data and a lot of control to continuously iterate to make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, as Molson did actually in the previous example with his product. So fix the offer, fix conversion, know your numbers, master the channel, in that order. So I hope that this video is helpful. If you want to work with us at Voadera, doing at least $1 million a year, come check us out. Go to Voadera.com, book a strategy call with us. We'll also do a profit gap analysis for free. Look at your channel. Otherwise, subscribe. You'll get there one day. Hopefully, we partner up then.